Welcome to Kaden's Movie Club, where we watch a movie each week and discuss it like a book club. And this week we watched The Matrix. This month's theme is artificial intelligence, so we're looking at it through that lens, but we can discuss whatever thoughts you had in the comments. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, go to my link. The Matrix portrays a future in which AI became intelligent enough to overtake humanity and now essentially rules the Earth. Humans are used as a power source for the machines, basically like batteries. But the big twist is that most humans don't know this. They think the world is continuing on like normal, but the world they know is actually a simulation designed by the machines to keep humans pacified. That simulation is called The Matrix. And I want to note really quick that the simulation is supposed to be set at the peak of human civilization, which here is the late 90s. Sorry to later generations, but apparently we peaked with flip phones and AOL. It's only downhill from there. But in all seriousness, I think it's incredible that the Wachowskis thought of this idea when they did, because The Matrix was portraying a new kind of AI. If you look at something like The Terminator, the portrayal of the AI is very physical. It's an android, which in this case is a robotic skeleton that poses as a human. And intelligent robots have a long history in media as the default representation of AI and advanced technology. But in The Matrix, AI is a more metaphysical presence. Yes, they have drones that go around and attack human ships, but agents are the primary representation of the AI, and they are essentially programs within a program. None of it is truly tangible. And I love Terminator, but I feel like the Matrix portrayal of AI is more frightening because it more closely resembles what we're dealing with now. The internet is not tangible, AI chatbots and systems are not physical entities, but we've gotten to the point as a society where people are genuinely struggling to tell the difference between something created by AI and reality. And it only took us a little over 20 years from the time the Wachowskis created a story based on that idea. At one point, Agent Smith tells Morpheus that the original version of the Matrix was perfect. It was a utopia in which everyone was happy, but humans rejected the programming and it didn't work. Smith gives two possible explanations. Either the AI didn't know what defined a perfect human reality, or humans defined their reality through misery and suffering. Agent Smith believes the latter. So the question I have for you is, do you think Agent Smith's theory is correct? If humans were given a utopia, would they be able to accept it as reality? Or is there something embedded in us that expects bad things to be a part of reality? Personally, I agree with Smith, and here's why. Most of us are already living in some kind of false reality. Thanks to algorithms, which for the overarching discussion I think we can consider a form of AI, our views of the outside world are catered to the exact things that we want to see. Any platform you use observes everything you do, what you interact with, what you like, what you didn't like, how long you engage with the material, and it quickly learns how to feed you the things that you want to see all the time. And so these platforms give us an unrealistic view of the world because it's omitting certain things and pushing other things. In other words, our AI has created a false reality for us. But to Agent Smith's point, you'd assume if everyone's feeds are catered to what they want to see, then it would be filled with happy things, right? No. We constantly engage with things that make us feel fear and anger and sadness. They're often just as prevalent in our catered realities as the things that make us feel good. I'm not sure if I can explain why, but I think Smith is right, and humans have some kind of inherent need to see both bad and good, and the AI is just acting on that instinct. Now, some of the humans who have escaped the Matrix, such as Morpheus, believe in a prophecy that says a figure known as the One is destined to eventually defeat the machines. Morpheus believes Neo is the One, but in a world that's so technical and digital, where does a prophecy even come from? That would be the Oracle. The Oracle is very mysterious, but is said to be very old, having been with the Resistance from the beginning. She's the one that gave the prophecy about the One. She also meets with people and tells them about their future, but Morpheus tells Neo not to think of it in terms of whether she's right or wrong. She's a guide that can show you the path. And that becomes pretty important because she tells Neo he is not the One. But she told Morpheus he would find the One, and she told Trinity she would fall in love with the One. Well, Morpheus found Neo, and Trinity loves Neo, and then Neo does some crazy stuff by the end that sure seems like he's the One. So was the Oracle wrong, or did she tell Neo what he needed to hear so that he would become the One? Just like that moment where she says, "Don't worry about the vase," and then he breaks the vase, and she raises the question, would you have broken the vase if I didn't say anything? Another fun thing that I noticed this time around is that earlier in the movie, Cypher makes a reference to the Wizard of Oz and calls Neo Dorothy. Then Neo goes to see the Oracle, and she's wearing green, and the walls are green, reminiscent of the Wizard and the Emerald City. And this is on top of the references to Alice in Wonderland, both stories about characters going to other realities. Now, we actually learn a lot more about the Oracle in the sequels, and that information helps tie things back to our theme of artificial intelligence, but I want to keep our discussion to this movie that we've all seen. So I want to turn this one over to you guys and hear what you thought of the Oracle, and especially if you think she might play into the commentary on AI. There is one member of Morpheus' crew who is not happy living in the real world, and that's Cypher. So much so, he hatches a scheme in which he'll betray Morpheus to the AI, and in return, the AI will put him back in the Matrix, ensuring that he lives a happy life and never even remembers the truth. As Cypher puts it, ignorance is bliss. Now, on one hand, I think we can understand Cypher's perspective. The real world isn't a fun place to be. The earth is scorched, people are living underground, they dress in rags and eat slop, and they're constantly risking their lives fighting a war that will be very hard to win. Compared to all that, maybe the travails of an ordinary life, even if it's not real, might not be so bad. But Cypher's plan to try and ignore reality for his own comfort not only has disastrous results for himself, but for the people around him. The same scene we discussed earlier, Agent Smith also says, As soon as we started thinking for you, it became our civilization. So to come back to that idea about false realities we create for ourselves, it can get really easy to think our specific perspective of the world applies to everyone, especially if we continually reinforce that perspective. But in a way, that's kind of choosing what Cypher did and saying, ignorance is bliss. Because if we're only living in the reality we've created, we're not acknowledging the truth that other people might not be experiencing the world in the same way we are. And obviously when the Wachowskis made this movie, the internet and the digital age was still essentially in its infancy. It was not nearly what it is now. But I think they had their pulse on this idea that as technology advances, the true problem is going to be the way in which it distorts reality. So we get this huge epic story that's got martial arts, sunglasses, leather, and slow motion, but all to speak to the idea of not letting AI pull the wool over our eyes, even if it makes life seem easy. There will come a time when we'll have to push back against that kind of thing to make sure we stay human. Let's continue this discussion in the comments. I would love to hear all your thoughts on The Matrix, but before we wrap up, I'd like to give a sneak peek at next week's movie, Her. Out of the 4 movies in our lineup this month, I think this one will most closely resemble where AI actually is for us right now. Her tells the story of a man who develops a relationship with the AI on his personal devices. The AI is personified primarily by a female voice and is called Samantha. Basically, the setup is, what if someone started to think of Siri as a real person? It was released in 2013, which was only 3 years after Siri was released on iPhones. And if you remember the early days of Siri, its capabilities were pretty limited to simple commands. And it still kind of is, but if you've seen what AI chatbots are capable of now and merge that with the idea of Siri, then you get Samantha, or Her. Funny enough, the writer-director Spike Jonze actually got the idea for the movie in the early 2000s when he read an article that talked about people interacting with chatbots. He tried it and said at the time it was interesting for about 20 seconds or so when it seemed like it was alive, and then it became obvious it was a machine and not a person. But the more the chatbot interacted with people, the more it learned to talk like a person, and it continued to get more and more believable. So Jonze imagined a near future where the chatbot would be indistinguishable from how a real person talks. And I don't know if we're quite there yet, but we're inching closer and closer every single day. So here are some questions to keep in mind while watching Her. Is Theodore's relationship with Samantha genuine, or is it self-delusion? Does Samantha ever feel real to you? How do you define real? Do you think the story is a warning about AI or a suggestion about how AI could benefit people? I hope you enjoyed watching The Matrix. I'm looking forward to watching Her, and I'll see you back here next week.